could you take your seats? We have started recording now. And I would like to thank everyone, Evan. I would like to thank everyone for braving the rain, getting up very early in what has been an incredibly long week for the people who are here, and even potentially for those who have been online and following the various sessions. So, there's still a lot of chatter going on. I would like to introduce our speakers. Funke? Could I? All right. So, as you can see, it's been a bit hectic this morning. So I would maybe just like us to take like 1 second to breathe and arrive in the room. There has been a lot of networking, a lot of things going on. Scaling is always a bit chaotic, so I like to think it's sort of the vibe maybe we're going into, but also important to center yourself, right, in that moment. Okay, are we all in the room now? Thank you. All right, my name is Nora Hankelo. If we could pull up my slide. All right, I will be facilitating today. My main job is therefore to get people together, keep time, and hopefully introduce everyone properly without missing protocol. But I have found the CG doesn't stand so much on protocol, so hopefully I won't slip up. All right, but we do have quite a lot of people in the room today, and we will be introducing them as we introduce the panels, as we introduce the speakers. Obviously, we also have a whole CG team here, right? The leadership team, some of whom will speak, some of whom will not. Everyone in the room, though, is scaling for impact, so I hope everyone has gotten their, here it is, the little magnetic tag, which apparently have become collectibles, and people are exchanging them to get a full set. So we are one of the last ones, so high-value tags is all I want to say. So, you know, hold on to them before someone snatches it off your shirt. Okay. So I'm with the International Water Management Institute, but in this program I do coordination support. I also support the Food Frontiers and Security program. I'm based in South Africa, and I'm here very excited. I had a dinner conversation yesterday about what's a game changer and what program brings game changers and how program brings game changers, and I couldn't help but think that for the CG, not for each program, that for the CG, this might be a real game changer. So I'm super excited to introduce our Executive Managing Director, Ismahan, to give us her opening. Can we please give her a warm round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nora. Good morning, and it is a game changer. That's really what I believe. So, colleagues, welcome to the launch of the Scaling for Impact program, CGIAR bold new step towards turning innovation into transformation. I think really we all agree that in the face of poverty, malnutrition, insecurity, food and nutrition insecurity, climate change, agri-food system needs solutions that can be scaled. So we can't continue talking about few people here and few communities here. We need to go to really the scale that will make a difference in the life and livelihood of people. CGIAR is generating a powerful solution, but too many of them aren't reaching the people who need them most, and not quickly enough to match the scale of the crisis. The Scaling for Impact program, also known as Catalyzing Impact, is our vehicle to change this. It connects CGIAR scientific breakthroughs with real-world delivery mechanisms, regional demand, and strong institutional partnerships. It is built on 3 key principles: aligning innovations with local and regional priorities, fostering environment for adoption, and enhancing the science of scale to deliver faster and smarter. In many ways, we used to develop the innovations or the tools or the solutions and put them out there and wait for people to come and pick them up. And then when they ask us why you don't have impact, we say, oh, but we have them, we did our work. But the reality is that it's up to us, the onus is on us to make sure that people know of it, that we showcase it at a number that will attract attention and that will, somebody else will come again, help us, and bring it into the millions. So the Scaling for Impact drives innovation, collaboration across government, civil society, the private sector, the financial institution to support adaptive research and scaling. And I would add really the last mile colleagues, the last mile organization, the last mile communities and NGOs that we need really to get on board. Together with partners, CGIAR tests, refines, and scales innovation in the context where they will be scaled while nurturing enabling environment for adoption and impact. The program will use very strongly South-South learning and regional exchange to drive both the science and practice of scaling. It makes sure research stays aligned with stakeholder needs, focuses on high impact, locally relevant innovations with a transdisciplinary approach. The program puts both science and real-world impact at its core. And we are already seeing what's possible. We do have really very good examples. The first one that comes to mind, it's TAT, and we have Dr. Innocent with us here from the African Development Bank. CGIAR and partners delivered climate-smart seeds to over 12 million farmers in 27 countries in just 3 years. The other example, it's ICRA, the climate-smart agriculture and advisory services that have reached over 1 million smallholder farmers across Africa, again, in a very short time. So we have also the third example, it's our biofortified crops and varieties. We have co-developed more than 350 biofortified crop varieties, and I have beans here, guys, because I like beans, but also because I think really what we have done in the beans through BAPRA, it's amazing. So those 350 biofortified crop varieties that really was based on closely working with NARS partners to ensure they meet market demand and reach households. But this is not about replicating old models. It is about building innovative ecosystems that bring together research institutions, national government, the private sector, and civil society to drive scaling that will be lasting and that will make really the positive impact on life and livelihood of people. Today, we are not just launching a new program, we are launching a new mindset, one where success is measured not only by what we develop, but also by what we deliver and who benefits from it. Thank you so much for being here at 8 a.m. And I know you care about the program, and I'm looking forward to hear the views of the colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the petrol in the engine that is the Scaling for Impact program. So that's Timothy Krupnik and Inge Jacobs-Matter. They are the lead and co-lead, or deputy and deputy director. Please go ahead. They will introduce the program. I'm sure a lot of us are very excited.
Good morning and welcome, everybody. Can you advance the slide, please? So we wanted to start off by reflecting a little bit on the challenge, why we are here. It's really important to reflect on the points that drive us back to home. CGIAR does face a new challenge. We have 9% of the world's population living in extreme poverty. 3 billion are at climate risk vulnerable at any time. 3 billion people now still can't afford a healthy diet. And roughly 2.2 billion people remain moderately or food insecure. As Ismahan indicated in the morning, we develop innovations, we do the best science and research, but doing that alone is not enough. Our real mandate is to move that work into use and uptake at scale. Next. So that is what this program is designed to do in support of CGIAR's entire portfolio of programs and accelerators and all of our centers and our partners working together. We focus on courageous and transformative new partnerships. We focus on scaling both cost-effectively and socially and environmentally responsibly. We also do very good transdisciplinary science, again, with all of CGIAR's portfolio of programs and accelerators. We have a short video to introduce you to the program.
Welcome to CGIAR Scaling for Impact, a transformative scaling science movement designed to tackle the complex challenges facing global agri-food systems. With an ambition to empower 62 million people and leverage $5 billion in financing, Scaling for Impact represents a bold step toward a sustainable future. Today's agri-food systems are under immense strain. Climate change, resource degradation, inequality, and geopolitical instability are compounding risks, leaving millions without access to nutritious food, sustainable livelihoods, and climate-resilient solutions. Scaling for Impact addresses these challenges head-on with an innovative approach that blends scientific rigor with practical, scalable solutions to transform food, land, and water systems worldwide. By 2030, Scaling for Impact aims to achieve measurable outcomes, enabling 62 million people, including underrepresented groups, to benefit from transformative innovations. Leveraging $5 billion in scaling finance for climate-smart and inclusive solutions. Restoring 10 million hectares of land and improving access to healthier diets for nearly 500,000 people. This vision drives every aspect of our work, uniting stakeholders across sectors to deliver lasting impact. Like Lego blocks, our innovations are bundled and aligned into innovation packages, bundles, and pathways to create sustainable, cost-effective, and inclusive solutions for agri-food systems. These innovations are reviewed and evaluated for scaling readiness. The most viable innovations demonstrating the most potential are developed into scaling strategies with partners. These innovation bundles operate within context-specific enabling policy and market environments and require inclusive finance and strategic partnerships to reach scale. To do this, Scaling for Impact operates through 5 synergistic areas of work. Engage and empower, prioritizing stakeholder priorities and demands to shape adaptive solutions. Pathways to scale, transforming localized successes into scalable models by designing, testing, demonstrating, and evaluating innovation bundles to be scaled through appropriate pathways such as extension services or agribusiness acceleration. Enabling Environment Lab, addressing regulatory, market, and societal barriers to scaling by providing tailored technical support to public and private sector partners. The design of inclusive scaling strategies is at the heart of the Enabling Environment Lab's objective, to ensure that scaling efforts not only do no harm, but also directly benefit women, youth, marginalized, and other underrepresented groups. Achieving impact, mobilizing partnerships and financing for systemic change by partnering with international finance institutions, private impact investors, and even humanitarian aid organizations. Learning for Impact, turning insights into action for continuous learning by pushing the frontier in scaling science, enhancing CGIAR systemic innovation portfolio management, promoting South-South collaboration, and even creating safe spaces to learn from failure. Together, these areas ensure a unified, holistic approach to sustainable, cost-effective, and inclusive scaling. With the ambition to empower millions, Scaling for Impact offers a blueprint for transformative scaling. Join us in creating resilient, inclusive agri-food systems that work for people and the planet. Together, we can shape a brighter tomorrow. Welcome to...
So that gives you a little bit of the background of what we're working at. And it's a fun approach to scaling, but I also want to underscore that there's very serious science behind the work we do. We're not just a development organization. We're not working to compete with NGOs, many of which might be much more efficient development and delivery partners than we could be. We want to bring the best science and approach to the work we do, and that's the CGIAR's comparative advantage. There's a deep history of research on scaling and innovations. It really started many decades ago, and one of the most referred to approaches is Everett Rogers' work on the diffusion of innovations. And this approach, it's been widely critiqued. There's a lot of challenges and issues behind this, but it still stands as sort of a keystone piece of work in understanding how you might want to develop innovations and think about moving them through different pathways, be them markets, policies, working through different sets of partners, et cetera, to move them into scale. But more than, I believe, 7 decades ago, this work was put together that focused on understanding that there are often early adopters, later adopters, people who are interested in trying new innovations, they're natural experimenters. These are your innovative, cutting-edge farmers that many of us work with. But you also understand in many cases there are those that are much more reluctant to adopt innovations, and it takes time for them to adopt them. And that's where you see this hump-shaped curve. That hump-shaped curve, if you turn it on its side, actually becomes this sigmoidal curve, this S-shaped curve, which is often used to map the trajectory of the adoption of innovations over time. What's important in many cases is that there's a real challenge with that curve. And it's what you see here as the innovation valley of death. And that's what this program really focuses on. It focuses on working with the whole of CGIAR, all its programs and accelerators, cooperatively to say, what best innovations do you have, and how can we move them across the valley of death between the uptake of early adopters and later adopters. And in order to do that, we use approaches that are very well known now in scaling science theory and in practice. What you see here, I've often said, if you're an agronomist, when you see this, you think about nutrients right away. If you're a scaling scientist, you think about a leaking barrel with its lowest stave being the weakest point that you might need to focus on. So if you think about the ability to scale an innovation, it requires a number of ingredients, including, for example, technologies and practice, awareness and demand. It needs a business case. You might also need to focus on governance. But if you're able to identify the weakest link, signified here in this example as finance, then we can channel our efforts most effectively in tackling the finance challenge. CGIAR tends to be very good on technology and practice, and also on raising awareness of technologies. We're not always quite as good in working in these other areas. That's what this program does. It focuses on the weakest link and bridging these gaps. An example of how we can potentially, or have done that in the past, this is work from Bangladesh, where over a short period of time, we did identify in a challenge where we were working to scale agricultural mechanization services to smallholder farmers. We thought that the initial challenge was awareness and training of farmers, but using approaches and tools in scaling science, we identified critical gaps in the supply chain of spare parts and also in finance. And we targeted our efforts in that, and in a relatively short amount of time, we were able to increase the adoption of two-wheel tractor seed and fertilizer drills, reaper harvesters, and axial flow irrigation pumps at a very large scale. I'm very pleased to say also there's been an ISDC review of this work, and particularly for the axial flow pumps, now we see roughly 16% of all households in Bangladesh now being able to access this fuel-efficient irrigation technology. If we had not approached it through this approach, we would not have gotten there. Also very important in the design of our program is building on CGIAR's work and legacy of innovation science. And we have many team members in this room who have been working on innovation profiling, innovation scaling readiness, and there's a range of different approaches that can be used. What's important when you see this, you can think about this as a movement through time. CGIAR develops innovations indicated by the small dots that you see here. We want to work to filter them through stage gates, understanding which ones are most possible to bring to scale. We want to partner with the CGIAR science programs in innovation development, but to help them steward the products of their work through a series of stage gates. The program's design is to identify those which are proven to work most effectively. That's not a decision that we take ourselves, it's something that we take in partnership with the other 8 science programs that are operating from 2025 to 2030. The best and promising innovations that we identify together are those that we will move to impact at scale through partnerships, through catalyzing finance, eventually pulling back so the system pushes innovations forward on its own. So in a single slide, this is the approach of the program. With that, I'd like to turn over to Inga, who will deliver the last few slides.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Tim, and good morning, everyone. It's nice to see the room filling up, especially on the fourth day of Science Week, when you could be sitting somewhere else. And you are in this room because you are passionate about the practice, but also the science of scaling, but also, like us, probably frustrated about either the pace or, you know, some scaling bottleneck that you've experienced along the way and you've been burnt in the past, right? And this is really what we are trying to address, bringing together different types of stakeholders into this program in a collaborative scaling coalition. And if you can see on the slide, we really are trying to bring in a broad coalition of the willing. So in our area of work one, that is largely about demand signaling, right? Getting better at articulating priorities on the ground, in countries, in context-specific places. Then you have a space for, then there's a place for you in area of work one, because we are looking to partner with research, development stakeholders, large national innovation system actors, NAREs, people that are involved in articulating country priorities for scaling. If you work directly on farm, in field, you're a farmer, or you're a member or a representative of farmer associations, you're an ag value chain actor, environmental, development, health organizations, then really area of work two is where we really want to see how we can collaborate with you, because this is where we do the designing, the testing, the evaluation, demonstrating of innovation bundles. Area of work three, as the video said, is about the Enabling Environment Lab. So here we're looking to partner with policymakers, decision makers, but also decision makers in market systems. How we navigate regulatory barriers, how do we address them, how do we ensure market outcomes for innovations to reach scale. Area of work four is really exciting because it's about how we amplify our work, how we become a technical support partner in large development programming. So our IFIs, international finance institutions, but also in impact investors. Really, we want you to co-create this work package with us. An area of work four is really about learning, adaptive management. So we're excited to really bring in this new cohort of scaling scientists. You know, I'm not very old, but when I was in university, there wasn't such a thing as scaling science. There wasn't a degree. And now we have this amazing new cohort coming through of dedicated scaling scientists. So we want to leverage that and build these kind of, really push the new frontiers of scaling science. But at the core, we're talking about responsible scaling. And this means that our approach is really about, as the EMD mentioned, being context specific in how we scale, really striving for locally led innovation scaling, co-designing, co-developing these scaling pathways with our stakeholders, but also because we're a science organization, being very strongly evidence-based around what works, where, for whom, why, understanding how we can be better at inclusive scaling approaches. How can we, both in the design of innovation bundles, but also in the benefits and the access to these innovations. Now, I mentioned, you know, the fact that we didn't have scaling science as a degree 10 years ago. So we also need to lift up the whole system, strengthen the capacity at large. And we acknowledge that in this program, CGIAR may not necessarily have all the skills needed. And so this is why we need partners that can come on board to support this collective system capacity. And we acknowledge also there are unintended consequences on the way. So this is really about do no harm, eyes wide open approach to scaling, looking at what we do, does it have any kind of unintended consequences along the way, and of course ensuring cost-effective and sustainable scaling in the long run. So we often get asked, what's going on? We often get asked, so what are you going to do exactly? Can you push it over, V? I can't get to this next one, please. So we often get asked, so what exactly are you doing? Before that, we often get asked, what exactly are you doing as the Scaling for Impact program, right? Can you get more concrete? You guys are so broad, you're all fluffy. So what we've started to do now is to design scaling flagships. And this is where we're really looking forward to the collaboration with our other science programs. Seed and grain value chains, looking at how we can scale innovation bundles in these value chains. We're also looking to inclusive climate services, digital agro-advisory services. How do you couple that into other value chains? We're looking forward to working with our SAF program on livestock and animal health innovations. We're also looking at how we look at resource conservation, farm diversification packages with our sustainable farming program. Innovations for healthier diets, as well as rural entrepreneurship and farm mechanization. All of this is bundled in particular contexts, particular places, and this is also what we want to get a little bit more concrete about with you. And then looking forward to some quick wins that we can really push in the next few months. We are really proud of our Scaling Week that has now been going for a few years in Nairobi, and they are really gaining momentum, and we will continue that this year. We also launched the East African Regional Scaling Hub here in Nairobi, the first of what we hope would be a few more. Exactly, yes, a real momentum reach with that one. We've also brought together a whole series of partners in what we are calling a scaling coalition. Global, regional, national partners, NARs, are encouraged to come together at an organizational level for us to think through how we can do scaling in a more coordinated way, how we can align our innovation portfolios. And so please do reach out to us if you are interested in joining this coalition. And lastly, also the Netherlands Food Partnership with its focus on scaling for impact. Really, this is also helping us support different types of scaling projects in regions. And then in the next 3 months, thank you, we have several other activities that we are working on. Stakeholder demand panel surveys, country calibration frameworks, or country engagement, country partnership frameworks to better articulate demand in country. We're also developing this, a prototype for our demand intelligence dashboard at the CGIAR level. But then we're also going to be unleashing our top 10 innovations, working with the different programs, collecting what is at that level, that scaling readiness level, to really push scaling in an accelerated manner. And then we already are building on several enabling environment efforts, and feel that we can already call them step changes, where we are very close to reaching policy or market outcomes. These are policies, or they are regulatory licensing, tax interventions that will really unlock barriers to scaling. Another one, and this is also where our chief scientist has also been very supportive, we have to thank her for that, is developing this blueprint for global innovation clearinghouse. It's a global clearinghouse building on the really good work of TAT, if you know TAT, with the African Development Bank. I've got it. But this is really taking it to a higher level, at the global level. How do we bring together the experience of TAT in other regions? We worked on a scaling fund in East and Southern Africa, and now we want to take this global, and that's something we will also be working on this year, where the aim is to support scaling teams, research teams, to get more concrete about developing their scaling strategies. And lastly, at the Science of Scaling level, we look forward to a special issue of Scaling in Agricultural Systems journal this year as well. Thank you. Next slide. Okay. Thank you very much. Nora, I think it's over to you now. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can do a bit better than that. Can we give them a big round of applause? Thank you. Okay, so, of course, we're already behind time, so but we shall go ahead. So we are now moving into what some of you will recognize as area of work 1. We want to keep it thematic, right? But so it's the demand, supply, alignment, scaling, and we will hear first. Sorry, that's, yeah, exactly. That's the area of work 1. And we will hear from Funke, also from the International Water Management Institute, and the lead for that area of work, and then we'll hear from Daisy, and they've been supported by Paswell, who will not speak today, though. But can we give them a round of applause and welcome them? You have to point the thing that way.
Just one slide. Good morning, everyone. My name is Daisy Martinez. I co-lead the area of work 1 on demand signaling, and I'm also working on climate change policy and scaling at the Alliance of Biodiversity in Seattle. It is an honor to be here with you today, this group of people interested in scaling for impact. And we all share a common goal. No? As we heard during this week, we have a common goal to be part of, is to transform the agri-food systems so they are more sustainable, more climate resilient, and more inclusive and competitive. Achieving this at scale requires not just a strong science, as we've heard, but science that is attuned to the evolving needs of those we serve. CGIAR has worked in close partnerships with the stakeholders across regions. But today, we recognize the need to take this further, to adopt a more systematic and dynamic approach to understanding and updating the demand. So our research remains relevant, responsive, and impactful. This is the essence of the area of work on demand signaling and engagement, strengthening our ability to detect, interpret, and act on signals from farmers, policymakers, businesses, and communities. It's about building on what we already do and doing it more strategically. We're equipping ourselves with tools like the Demand Intelligence Dashboard that was mentioned a few minutes ago, the state-of-the-art region reports, country strategies, shaped by stakeholders' priorities. We're invested in inclusive consultations, foresight, and feedback loops to make sure our science is timely, targeted, and scalable. But understanding the demand is only the beginning. To truly deliver impact at scale, we must embrace adaptive management, the ability to learn, adjust, and evolve as we go. That means strong two-way communication, continuous learning, and the agility to respond as the insights emerge or priorities evolve. This is how we move forward from producing innovation to fostering adoption, unlocking investment, and building partnerships to drive transformation. So as we move into this panel, I invite you to reflect on these 3 questions. How can we ensure that limited resources flow to the most pressing and scalable needs? What are the low-cost, high-impact ways to assess and signal demand in real time? And how can we co-fund and co-develop demand-driven solutions with governments, private sector, and farmer organizations? Because ultimately, this is not just about how we generate research. It is about how we engage, adapt, and deliver meaningful impact together. With that, I'm pleased to hand over to Olufunke Kofi, Interim Lead for the Area of Work on Demand Signaling and Engagement, and Africa Director for Research Impact at IMI, who will moderate this panel.
Thank you very much, Daisy. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As she has said, the first thing is to actually understand the demand and how we respond to that appropriately. And we are privileged this morning to have some of our partners from different regions, at least 3 of the 6 regions that CGIAR is working in, and they are here to join us in this conversation from their perspectives to help us, to reflect and help us understand how we can better serve them. And so it's my privilege and honor to invite to the stage key people that have joined us. First of all, Mr. Sushil Chandra Ashaya from Asia. He is the Joint Secretary for the Ministry of Energy, Water Resources, and Irrigation in Nepal. You're welcome. Please join us. Let's clap for him. Thank you very much. He will be bringing us perspective from the country, from government organization, from the country, and also from the Asia region. And then we have also from Africa, and looking at the narratives, looking at research, someone to help us understand how we can better assess demand and respond appropriately. Dr. Angre Agomia, he's the Executive Director for the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa. Welcome, Agre. Thank you for joining. Let's clap for him. And all the way from Latin America, we have Dr. Mohamed Ibrahim, who is the Director of Technical Cooperation of the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, Latin America. Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. Let's clap for him. And last but not the least, of course, we have to understand the finance perspective, like you saw from Tim's illustration of adoption, why usually finance is a bottleneck. But we are privileged to have Mr. Innocent Musabiama, who is joining us from African Development Bank. Where is this Innocent? Yeah, okay, oh, he's coming. Yeah, please join us. He is the Chief Technologies Officer and the coordinator for TAT. TAT stands for Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, which is the initiative of the African Development Bank. And he's here to give us some perspective on finance. Welcome, Innocent. So we just have a few questions for our panel. So I want to start with Dr. Ibrahim from Latin America. What is your impression? You have listened to the program as presented by Tim. You have listened to the overview from Daisy about demand signaling and appropriate engagement. So we're looking at the whole program, Scaling for Impact program. What's your impression of how the program is positioning itself to meet the real demand? And how could collaboration with the organization help sharpen that focus? Thank you very much.
Good morning. First of all, let me thank you for inviting us to participate in this important panel discussion. But also, I think what the CGIAR is doing in terms of reshaping its methodologies and strategies as how to have the research and innovation move to scale. I think that's the approach that you presented is a very good approach in which ICA, as an institution, can play an important role in helping to scale up these innovations that we're working on. ICA is working in 34 countries, and I must say that in 34 countries, we're working in a very diverse environment with a lot of heterogeneity. If you look at the context in Central America, but also in the Caribbean region, which is characterized with more small farmers, whereas you compare to the southern cone, it's more articulated industrialized agriculture production. So the context of scaling must look into what are the socioeconomic context, the agricultural conditions, and how do you look at differentiated policies that is going to work and enable the scaling up of innovations that you're producing. So ICA as an institution is working with the Council of Ministers of Agriculture, but I must say that the food system goes across the nexus between food, health, environment, and also energy, which is something that we've seen in some of the countries like Brazil and Argentina. And therefore, we're working also on looking at a new generation of policies which enables the scaling up of these innovations and technologies. Also, we are working to promote better training, working with the NARS. You mentioned the NARS, the global network that is being launched today. ICA is promoting support and strengthening the NARS, but also we have experiences in working with these NARS as a mechanism of cooperation, which we refer to as the PROCES. As, for example, Procesur is already 40 years in existence and has been working on an agenda towards having innovation at scale with good experiences, and we can learn from those existing mechanisms like the NARS. But also our experiences goes beyond the NARS, working with the private sector, as for example, the coffee sector, which we have one of the processes called Prome Café, which CIRAD is part of this NARS, working with the organizations, research organizations, but also the Institute for Coffee, and to understand who's making the decisions in terms of innovation that we're working on, building a more multi-sectoral approach. So ICA provides support to the countries in terms of the policies, setting up the policies that we're working on, looking more at intersectoral policies, but also looking at institutional framework. And also, we are working on developing an observatory where people can have reference in what are the knowledge and information being developed, developing partnerships to work on mega programs, as for example, with the Green Climate Fund, which integrates the new innovations that you're working on to advance in climate-smart practices or more nutritional friendly food systems. As for example, in Brazil, we know that the public policies that the Brazilian government have in which promote policies for small farmers, purchasing 40% of the food produced by small farmers, and therefore the commodities like biofortified crops that you're producing, we see how can we integrate this within the policy setting and also scale up that. A similar example with the Caribbean initiative, in which you know the Caribbean has an initiative to reduce the food import bill by 25%, and therefore the innovation that you're producing will link into the regional policies, but also what the national policies are working on. So in synthesis, I think ICA can play an important role in supporting this initiative. We already have cooperation with the CGIAR, with the CIAT, with the Alliance for Biodiversity, with ILRI, with CIAT, with CIP and CIMIT, and we continue to show an interest to strengthen the cooperation in this respect.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, and particularly drawing our attention to the context of scaling, the importance of the context where we are, and the already established collaboration with the CGIAR in Latin America and the Caribbean. Also noted the emphasis on going beyond food, agriculture, the nexus with health, environment, and all those intersectoral policies, and where there's need for integration. Thank you very much. I will go to your counterparts in Africa, Agri. If you could just explain, just elaborate, maybe from your perspective, what would make demand assessment and signaling more useful from your perspective in the context of Africa? And how could Scaling for Impact partner with your organization to make that a reality? Thanks. Briefly.
Thank you very much, Funke, and good morning. It's a pleasure and an honor to be given this platform to share our perspectives. I'll be speaking from the perspective of FARA. FARA is the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa. It's the continental apex organization for research and innovation. Research and innovation organizations are structured at national level, regional level, and continental level. In recent years, we've had research, extension, and higher education coming together as a coalition and organizing themselves as the ARIS. ARIS stands for African Agricultural Research, Innovation, and Education Institutions. Yesterday, we had a ceremony where there was a signing of a partnership engagement framework between the ARIS, which are called the African Institutions, and the CGIAR. And in that framework, it spells out the priority areas of engagement, and there are 5 of them, and scaling for impact is one of them. So we are looking at what the program Scaling for Impact is about. The first area, which is on demand signaling. I have not been familiar with that terminology, demand signaling. So just learning from this strategy. Somebody said that demand is where we start from. If we get it wrong at that stage, then we are lost with the scaling. So it's a very important part of the whole strategy for scaling. What I see the Scaling for Impact providing us, the African institutions, is the knowledge on scaling, because we are also challenged to demonstrate impact. And we have some models for scaling that have been successful through the TAT program. But overall, there is a gap. There's a hunger for more knowledge and practice on how to carry out scaling. In terms of the demand assessment, the methodologies for carrying it out are the biggest gap. And what we see this program offering is understanding of the methodologies. The methodologies that are predominantly used presently depend on expressed preferences using conventional tools for gathering information. But there are, the current tools can be enriched by methodologies that observe behavior and get the preferences or the demand through passive means. And those are mainly digital technologies, and how they would be applied would be an interesting area of engagement. We see that demand signaling is an area where a partnership with the African institutions would enrich the process, and so we look forward to engage with the Scaling for Impact in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Agre. Thank you. Thanks particularly for emphasizing the gap in knowledge in terms of the lack of appropriate methodology for assessing demand, and also the need for knowledge on scaling, which we can deploy as we do this program. And we're excited about the new engagement framework with ARIS, which we can build on. Thanks a lot. Let me go to Asia and hear from country perspective from Mr. Chandra. What opportunities do you see for your country to work with this program in identifying and prioritizing what is truly needed rather than supply? Thank you. Just briefly.
Good morning. On behalf of Government of Nepal, it is my honor to speak in this important dialogue. And thank you, Olufinke, for the invitations. I am representing Asia as well as government institutions. The government should create enabling environment for the scaling. And the policy of enabling environment depends on the local context and situations. In Nepal, the farming community owns very small parcel of the land, fragmented and in many places. We are rich in water resources, but the supply of the water in terms of location and time is not matching. In the rainy season, too much water causing losses and damage, disturbing livelihoods. But in the dry season, there is scarcity of waters for cropping. So water management needs to be considered. Similarly, we are rich in the community engagement for in the natural resource management, whether forest management or irrigation system management or water supply system management. The climate and topography is diverse, so we have plenty of opportunity for diversified crops because our land is very below 100 meter in elevation to the highest peak, Mount Everest. So in this context, we have to focus the program and activities scaling for impact. So water is the basic fundamental for any agriculture. Just last year, irrigation policy highlight the importance of year-round irrigations. The technology for year-round irrigation is one of the technology for year-round irrigation in the hill terrace is the utilization of energy or lift technology. And in the plain terrain, utilization of groundwater technology and creation of the small and medium scale storage pond for utilization of water during dry seasons. For all this technology, for the construction, operation, and maintenance, we need to innovative idea and research-based fieldwork, which needs to be scaled up. Regarding the gravity irrigation systems, our farmers community are used to and aware about the development and management. But for the application of the lift technology is comparatively new for them. Our appropriate business model have to create it for development, for operations, for management, for farming, and after farming, post-farming, and processing. So in such business models, governments have to create enabling environment. Private sectors have to get more business for the mechanical or electrical maintenance or their business of supplies, and farmer community have to invest for the agriculture, and a local community, local government have to engage for the all the coordinations. So appropriate business model I have to develop. The CGIAR centers, one of the research programs, mixed farming technology, I have developed in the middle of such business models which need to be expanded throughout the country and throughout the regions of the similar features. Similarly, Nepal has relatively low agricultural productivity compared to the other Asian countries. This further improvements, we need to do irrigation management improvements, which is already initiated by the Nexus approach of the EMI programs, which need to be expanded. On-farm water management, application of the efficient water technology like a drip, that needs to be expanded. And in Nepal, energy is the clean energy, either hydropower, solar, or other clean energy. And clean energy is being surplus. Such surplus energy I have to utilize for the water management and agriculture. So to have a maximum benefit or maximum output from the water and land. Appropriate business model I have to develop. Similarly, municipal level of agriculture knowledge hubs that CGIAR mixed farming initiative contributed to building for practicing mixed farming systems. The hub can support for adoption of water efficiency with technology like micro-irrigations. So coordinations and engagement of the local municipality and local body is another skilling opportunity. I think there are plenty of opportunity for the crops, for the water management, for the land, for the optimum benefit or maximum benefit or productivity from the water and the land, for enhancing the livelihood of the peoples in the context of the climate change scenario, because climate change is threatening. Our springs are drying. The water tower of the Nepal is the Himalaya, which is getting less and less snow. So in this context, we have to do the innovative and research work for the appropriate water management, which needs to be scaled up, and which, by which not only Nepal, the region will be benefited. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Let's clap for him, Mr. Chandra. I can understand where you're coming from. I mean, as a country, you have a lot of priorities, and you really want to let us know what your priorities are. I heard you talking about the need for water management. Beyond that, you talk about other crops, and you talk about having an appropriate business model and having community involvement. So we'll take all that into consideration. Thanks a lot. Now, let's go come back to Africa and look at finance perspective. So this is going to, Innocent, we would like you to Kenley, from your perspective, you've heard about the Scaling for Impact program, you've been involved, and you've heard that we're actually also going to scale even a model that FDB has been implementing the past 8 years, the TAT model and all that. So how could the program, Scaling for Impact program, better connect with your organization to shape all the innovation bundles that are coming from the CGIAR into solutions that are ready for financing, so that we can it can lead to this scaling we're talking about, and not only financing, but also policy uptake and wide-scale delivery all over, beyond Africa. Thanks.
Thank you, Funke. Good morning, all. Thank you for the invitation, for the bank to be on this stage and specifically share the perspective or experience with already a flagship program, existing flagship program, the TAT, Technology for African Agriculture Transformation Program, which is now being implemented for the last almost 7 years. Funke, you said it all, and my two predecessor speakers to my extreme right side that just spoke a few minutes ago. It's very clear with what, at this moment of time, of challenge of the global and specifically in Africa, climate change, with all these hazards that are affecting our smallholder farmers, it's really timely, and I'm really happy today to see this milestone of scaling for impact, that being now live, starting from the CGIAR. This is really a big milestone, and congratulations to the CGIAR. So now, talking to the experience of TAT program, and I will speak more with the experience of the TAT clearing house, which is actually, I would say, a technical arm of the TAT program, initially designed specifically for vetting proven technologies, profiling them, as you rightly said it before, packaging, and take them to scale to millions of farmers. And that's specifically targeting specific programs of the government and also the the private sector. I'm sure some of you visit already the TAT booth, where you can see easily all these technologies that have been profiled, put on e-catalog, easily accessible by different stakeholders, the government and private sector. This is really something that we can build on, as you rightly say, this collaboration moving forward. So what we did throughout, I would say for the last 4 or 5 years where the clearinghouse has been in place, mostly working with the government and the bank, the clearinghouse participate in the bank missions, because you understand that the bank provide investment to the countries through loans, concession loans, or through grants. So clearinghouse, that team is working, participating in this mission together with the bank team, specifically during the preparation, appraisal of this mission, to make sure these technologies are embedded within these investment operations. So that's really a good example, experience that we have been working together with the bank, with the clearinghouse. Of course, they understand that the TAT program is bringing together all these CG centers that are participating in these missions. So once these missions are prepared, we reach out to the clearinghouse. They, with the CG centers' expertise, they prepare what we call the value proposition. The value proposition is based on proper intelligence of the country needs. So before you go to that mission, you have already go through the challenges that the country is facing, specifically for this particular investment operation that you are going to design. Let's say you are targeting the rice and maize value chain in Uganda. So they will do the expertise in these CG centers. They will assess the need in terms of these technologies. And then when we go to the mission, they have a clear value proposition. And they present to the government, a government convinced, then these technologies are integrated into this investment operation. This is exactly live example that I think the scaling of impact can build on as we take this to scale. Allow me to just not to speak in general terms, but bringing some specific examples, because these expertise of CG centers will provide specific technical assistance, mostly as regard to the seed development, because the seed is a key for the transformation of agriculture. Availing bundle technologies through the demonstration, that they will lead the demonstration across the countries to make sure seeing is believing, so that they can take this technology to scale. The capacity building of this analysis that the CG centers are doing across, and also the capacity building of the private sector. Those are examples that they are doing. Picking one example that recently, the CG centers participated in a mission, high-level mission. That's what I think is very important, that ownership by the DGs and the expertise going to the government. The particular case example I want to share with you is the Sierra Leone, where a high-level commitment, that's where you say the high-level commitment from government. Specifically, this particular case was the president of Sierra Leone. They want to really do a transformation of agriculture. The CG centers participate in this high-level mission, and they commit and develop the seed roadmap after a proper assessment of the seed from origination seed, certified, and the supply chain. And they came up with a very clear seed roadmap, clear investment program, and as we speak now, with the leadership of the government, they are mobilizing all development partners to invest in this seed roadmap developed together with the support facilitation of the Tax Clearing House, together with the CG centers. Now we are talking about around $70 million that we are going to invest to really do transformation in the Sierra Leone. That is exactly what's needed to be done, working together to take this to scale. Just another simple last one, Funke, last one. I have a number of examples, but just to pick just a recent one, where the third team went to, through the recent initiative, the bank started the African Emergency Food Production Facility in Nigeria. They funded specifically responded to the roaming impact of the Ukrainian crisis, where promoting increasing production of wheat. They started with 2022 on 70,000 hectares of wheat production by providing proper technical assistance, proper quality seed, good agricultural practices. And they're able to now, from 2022, from 70,000 to 150,000, 2023, and 2024, 250,000 hectares, without talking about the yield increase from 1.7 to 4 tons per hectare. That's a really game changer that the CG Center can make through a proper partnership with government. That's what we can build on as we take this scaling for impact to whole countries in the Africa, but also in the globe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Innocent. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, you've drawn our attention to something that is very core to the area of work one, the need for country engagement and processes, that all our activities will be embedded within the country, understanding the demand and being part of project preparation missions and high-level engagements, making ourselves ready, not just sit in our offices, but to actually understand the demand and provide technical assistance to all those people at the mission that are coming to identify projects and prepare projects for the country. You've also touched on the need for us to have a very clear value proposition, which goes beyond scaling for impact. It's all about what the CGIAR science programs and accelerators are set to do in specific countries and how the Scaling for Impact program can support, packaging all our innovations in a way that they are well articulated and can meet the demand of each country context. And thank you for drawing attention to the example in Sierra Leone and Nigeria, practical examples where already the CG centers are involved. So ladies and gentlemen, to wrap it up, we've heard that the context of scaling is very important. Each country or region is very unique, and that again emphasizes the fact that we have to go down to the country, to the regions, to ensure that what we're doing is very context-specific and respond to actual need. That's why our demand intelligence dashboard is very important, and it's going to be focused on different countries and many things around country, specific country spotlight that we're going to produce. We've also heard that it's actually beyond food. We need to look at the nexus framing of this thing. We're talking about food production, but beyond food, we have to think about the environment, water. We have to think about energy as well. And we have to look at intersectoral policies that will enable, and that's what our enabling environment area of work we'll be looking at. So they're actually speaking to how all our area works are connected to ensure that we're able to respond appropriately and having impact at the country level. So thank you very much for this. We don't have much time. I'll have to stop here. And I want to say thank you to our panel for joining us and all the ideas that you have shared with us, coming from different regions. We're going to take them into consideration as we continue to work together with you in rolling out the Scaling for Impact program. Thank you. Let's clap for them. Over to you, Nora.
All right. So the panelists, before you go, you might not know this, but this program is quite famous for having a lot of shirts. So we have one T-shirt for each of you as a thanks for coming on board. Rana is giving it to you. Can we give them another round of applause? Thank you. There is photographers somewhere? No? Okay, we gotta move. Maybe we can do it later. Thank you so much. All right. So we are now moving on, and we really wanted to do something. Okay, we'll do it later, thanks. We really wanted to do something interactive in a venue that maybe doesn't lend itself to being very interactive. And basically, we're going to do a fishbowl, which Ido will introduce and moderate. Before that, though, the person I previously announced and now will actually get her time. Rika, Flo, please join me here, and then she will present and do the framing for the fishbowl. Thank you so much. Let's go into the final section of the program. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Slide, please. In the past months, we have been hearing about, bombarded actually, about these news that global aid has been cut. And the fact is that we have to operate in an increasingly resource-constrained environment. As you can see in these clippings here, aid has been cut by the billions. How then do we take these beneficial innovations to reach millions of farmers? We need a multifaceted approach to scaling. And we need to be able to find lean and data-informed strategies to select those ready and suitable technologies that address the demand that the plenary had just discussed earlier. We need to be able to find those effective business models that, as we are moving along, these are also supporting those innovations. We need those strategic partnerships and the networks who are best placed to take with us these innovations into the hands of farmers. We need to harness the policy and the innovation context, the enabling environment, to be able to work with us to bring these innovations forward. And last but not the least, we need to be able to define together with the partners what is the best process that could harness the financial support to these innovations by working with these alternative financing investments. And that is what this program is all about. With that, I hand over to Ido.
Thank you very much, Rika. And good morning, everyone. We're going to have ourselves a fishbowl, but before that, could everyone just get up for a minute? It'll be painless, I promise. Okay, let's take one very big, deep breath and let it out. Great, please take your seats, thanks. We've been sitting for 80 minutes, so a little bit of blood circulation. So we're going to have a fishbowl. This is not going to be a panel. We are going to have a slightly more interactive session. And no, not the aquarium kind, though we do have one observer who's a little bit concerned about what our intentions are on the screen. So let me explain a little bit to reassure our friend and everyone else how this will work this morning. So we have 6 chairs here. I will occupy one for the moderation. And we are in the United Nations, so we will have 4 permanent members, 4 permanent panelists who will be with us throughout the period, which would leave how many chairs vacant? 1 chair vacant. What are we going to do with that chair? That chair will be open for, after we go through a couple of rounds with our permanent panelists, it will be open for anyone who would like to come in to be able to sit down. Now, it's not a permanent parking place, so you can come in and have a seat, say your piece in a minute or so, and then if you stay longer, somebody might come and tap you on the shoulder When that happens, you have to immediately vacate the seat so that we get more diversity and we enrich the conversation. But it is an invitation to all of you, to all of us, to actually do participate. We want this to be an interactive, and we do want to hear from you. Okay, so with that, let me proceed to invite our 4 permanent panelists. Sophie Rotman from MediaEye. Please give them a hand as they come in. Hi, Sophie. Great to see you. Clemens Berziger from the IFPRI. Siaka Gatabaki from Mersico AgriFin. And last but not least, Seamus Dunn from the Embassy of New Zealand. Anywhere you'd like, yes. So the way this will work, at least initially, is I'll have 2 rounds of questions for each of you. All of them are serious, but some will be a little humorous. So please humor me as we go along. Feel free to answer them. But before we start with the questions, perhaps we can give each one of you a minute, not 7, a minute, to introduce yourself and your organization. So maybe we can go around in clockwise fashion, starting with you, Sophie.
Okay. Thank you, Ido. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sophie Rotman. I work with the MediaEye company. At MediaEye, we essentially look at how we can use media to support education and development across sub-Saharan Africa and in future beyond. And we produced a television program called Shamba Shape Up, which is a makeover show on smallholder farms. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Clemens Breisinger. I'm heading IFPRI's office here in Nairobi. So to all of those who traveled here, Karibu Kenya. And I'm also double-heading as the interim director of the CGIAR Policy Innovations program. So I'll probably talk quite a bit about policy this morning.
Kia ora koutou katoa, that is to say greetings to you all in New Zealand's indigenous language, Te Reo Māori. Thank you very much for having me here. My name is Seamus Dunn. I'm the Deputy High Commissioner who is having trouble with his mic here in Kenya, but nominally based in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. We work with CGIAR on 2 key programs, Ukama Astawi and Asian Megadeltas, which of course have a connection to the work of some of my fellow panelists. Thanks again.
And last but not least, morning everyone, Siaka Gatabaki, representing Mersico. Mersico is an international NGO in both humanitarian development work. I work particularly for a specific program in the development sector that looks at food systems and how innovations can improve the lives of smallholder farmers. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And as you can see, we have a great diversity of sectors here. Let's jump straight in, and I'll start with you, Sophie, if that's okay. So Shamba Shape Up, or MediaEye generally, you reach millions. You have the kind of reach that most projects never touch. How do you know it's not just reach, that it's real change? What does, how do you know that, and what does impactful change look like to you?
Okay, thank you. So for MediaEye as an organization, it's been always very important for the last nearly 30 years now to actually measure the impact of the programs that we do, starting way back with radio, moving into television, mobile, and social media now as well. For Shamba Shape Up, we do a CAP study, so a knowledge, attitude, and practice survey, pre-broadcast, interviewing 1,000 farmers to get a sense of what are they thinking, or what do they know rather, what are they thinking and what are they doing around key practices. For example, do you know what a soil test is? Do you think it's a good idea? Have you ever done a soil test? Before we air, and then after we finish broadcast, we do another survey, a post-cap with 1,000 farmers, asking very similar questions. This time, half of them have watched the show, half of them have not watched the show. What it does, it gives us a sense of are we having an impact in those key areas. It also allows us to understand what does our audience want to learn more about. That's a very important question. What do they already know a lot about? What are the areas where we need to work with, for example, the commercial sector to actually improve something? Maybe we find that 60% know what a soil test is, 80% of those think it's a good idea, but only 8% are doing a soil test. So what does that tell us? And that's where we dive in and work with the likes of crop nuts to understand, okay, how can we make this a more accessible tool or service that farmers can access? Can I go on?
You can, but maybe I'll add a follow-up as you do.
Okay.
What is the secret sauce of looking behind? What is your secret to the evidence that helps you take that 8% and nudge it slowly upwards?
Well, I mean, so that the secret sauce, I guess, is doing that and understanding our audience. Building on that, we have iShamba, for example, which is our mobile platform that backs up the program. And essentially, we're very much a needs-driven organization. So 7 years into broadcasting the program, we found that people would start calling David, the director of the company. He would show up in the credit rolls. His phone number was on the website. Call him up at 7 a.m. On a Sunday morning and say, hey, is this Shamba Shape Up? Yes, my cow is sick, And us not really knowing what to do with that because we're filmmakers, we're a production company. So that really prompted us to set up iShamba, which is a call center staffed with trained agronomists where you can call in, ask your questions. It's developed, it's grown a lot bigger. Now we have over 580,000 people that are signed up asking questions. So that is a very important system within the whole Shamba Shape Up program because it allows us to see after this program, we did something on solar irrigation, 180 people called in asking, where can I get a solar pump? 300 people called in to say, my tomatoes are also sick, how can I actually do integrated pest management? So that's a really important component and it allows a two-way system where we're not just imposing our idea of what farmers we think they need to know, but we have a direct feedback that's pretty much real time, allowing us to say this is how we need to improve the program going forward. Come to our partners, CGIAR, Mercy Corps, and say, look, these are the areas we can see people want more information, and there are knowledge gaps. How can we address those?
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
Clemens, over to you. And I'd like to start by asking you, if you had to, and I imagine you often do, justify the return on investment of policy engagement to a very skeptical finance minister, what's your go-to place? How do you address that?
All right. First of all, it's my first time in a fishbowl. I guess what qualifies me, I had a fish tank when I was young, so I'm excited. Thanks for inviting me. So it's all about prioritization. Nowadays, more than ever, we just heard about the cuts. We also know that governments are short on cash. So economics is basically the science of scarcity. So we are quite used to having these discussions with ministries of finance. It's nothing new. What ministries of finance really appreciate is evidence, and of course they like numbers a lot. So what really helps them, and as a Ministry of Finance, you're looking over all the ministry. First question is, okay, what kind of sectors are we going to invest in? And agriculture is just one, right? There could be investments in health, there could be investments in education, there could be investments in infrastructure, there could be many other things. So one of the main things that we have been doing and will continue to do, to look across sectors. Also, the food system is multi-sectorial. So what are the returns of investment to different sectors? Now, of course, one sector that's very close to all of our heart is agriculture. And we have seen in the past that the return of investment to agriculture, especially when it comes to economic growth and poverty reduction, is actually very high. Now, more recent research shows that starts to change in some of the countries, right? As agriculture becomes more mechanized, more large scale, more modern, there are less poor people working in that sector in some countries. So that's why we now start talking about the food system. We have to go beyond agriculture. Where are the new jobs created? Is in the processing sector, in the trading sector, etc. So that's why the food system approach is so important for the core mission that we all have and to achieve high returns of investment in our 5 impact areas.
Very nice. That your system is a food system is a very nice thing. Let me move on then to Seamus. And the first question is, from a funder point of view, and in a resource-constrained world, what would make a program like Scaling for Impact a no-brainer investment, even in the current climate?
Thanks for the question. I should add, it's also my first time in a fishbowl, and I hope I won't drown. The global context, and you know, this has sort of been a refrain in some of the conversations I've had throughout this week, is increasingly uncertain, and frankly, it's always been uncertain. Uncertainty is just status quo from my perspective. But the pace of change and the challenges, and it's sort of coming at all from us at all corners, makes it, you know, feel more overwhelming, more difficult to manage, respond, and react to. I've been really encouraged this morning by the presentations we've had so far in terms of introducing the program, because I do think Scaling for Impact is designed to address these specific challenges in mind. So the things that struck me are the things that we saw do really well out of the programs that New Zealand has supported. That's where we are identifying really powerful success stories, like Shamba Shape Up is a very consistent example when I'm talking about the success of the Kamara Stawi. It is about seeing what can be done to prioritize those innovations, particularly really emphasize the ones that are going to really clearly deliver that impact. And then it's about visibility. So the numbers game was mentioned earlier. You know, the numbers have to pick up attention and make a difference. So those things will help as well. The more efficiencies that can be gained, the closer that a program can align with bilateral country as well as regional objectives. These things are going to, I think, attract more attention as governments very ruthlessly prioritize, and I think we're going to see more of that as we continue to sort of collectively face economic headwinds.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that. I hope my colleagues, especially in the area of work 4, are listening. They want more bang for the buck with evidence behind. Perhaps not surprising, but very good to have the information. Siaka, you work at the intersection of finance, tech, and farmer impact. What is one mistake that we keep making in that interface? And what is one piece of advice that you would give ourselves to get over that and stop making those mistakes?
Wow. You know, I was listening to the other questions, trying to anticipate what question you'd ask me, because we didn't prep for this. That's a profound question. I think at the very beginning of the presentation, there was the issue around the valley of death. There's a big question there when we look at innovation, whether it's from a financial lens, whether it's from product market fit, etc. And one thing that I don't think we have gotten very well is, should I say, the art of the science of entrepreneurship. Yeah. And what I mean by this is that we have seen entrepreneurs excel in situations where there is low resources. That's their ability to identify what is it that I can leverage to move the needle from one point to the next. But beyond that art, there is a science. As we've kept saying, there is evidence. There are things that you can latch on that build a model within which that entrepreneur is working with. I think one day we'll say that AI looks like it's magic, but it's actually algorithms. It's trained, it thinks in a certain way. And we need to go back to really understanding or finding ways of getting to that science of entrepreneurship such that when we look at these big challenges that we're trying to face, whether it's about increasing access to finance, improving the capital stack, where it's about improving go-to-market, etc., it's really finding the science in those processes, just like we did for diffusion of innovations, finding that science and then being able to then diffuse that to the larger population. I hope I've answered your question.
Well, you didn't, so I'm going to push back a little bit. It's a very good answer, and it helps us set the stage, but if you don't want to, and I don't want to put you too much on the spot, speak about failures we keep making in the intersection of these areas, maybe I'll pick up on one of the things that you said. So we are witnessing a very rapid adoption of AI, and we see that, you know, that has potential for solving a lot of problems, bridging a lot of gaps, but also widening a lot of gaps in terms of who has access to it, how it's used, etc. Do you want to say a little bit to, you know, I'll put you in two difficult spots, so you can pick the spot that you feel more comfortable with. Either how you're witnessing that unfold right now in the world we live in, or, you know, if you want to delve into some of the classic mismatches between how these sectors still remain a bit siloed and don't really come together.
Great. Yeah, and probably the failures question is really tough because there's so many factors leading to it. Yesterday I was at a World Bank conversation with accelerators. And a big challenge was the lack of collaboration between those who are accelerating at pre-seed stage and those who are supporting acceleration beyond pre-seed, seed, and Series A, etc. And we're trying to unpack why don't we, because it's a natural progression of moving an innovation from one point to the next, why is there a lack of communication? Why is that lack of collaboration? Are there challenges in the incentives that are there that promote collaboration, etc.? So that's one of the things that I see is definitely missing, is that we do not see or do not, we work within what I'd call it our, for lack of a better word, we drink our Kool-Aid. Yeah? So we work within our context, we get very microscopic in our world, and we miss certain elements that are out there that would make solving the problem a lot easier. So to answer your question again, those are some of the things I say, the mistakes that keep happening, is that we miss the mark when we are caught up in one way of thinking. And probably the answer is out there in a myriad of ways. When it comes to the question of adoption, I think sometimes the simplest solution oftentimes is the one that leads to the highest level of adoption. Oftentimes in the NGO world, one of the examples that I see is quite powerful is table banking. Not only does it provide a very basic way of increasing resilience for farmers, it also educates them on financial literacy, introduces them to financial management, introduces collaborative models around probably what insurance could be if we set aside money as a group and covered risk together. So models like that I find are easy to adopt because they relate to the context. They allow people to think through things from a perspective of where they sit. So it's got a lot more homogeneity in terms of its deployment. And then it can be easily replicated or become very viral. And that's probably one of the biggest financial movements that we've seen across sub-Saharan Africa.
Fantastic, thank you. And as someone who works in research, you know, a lot of this really echoes in terms of how do we undo those silos and get into the real cracks of it. Sophie, let me come back to you again, if I can. So if Scaling for Impact had the budget for like one very bold Pan-African media campaign in 2025, what would it be about? And what's your call of action to us?
Okay, I obviously can't say we would go towards Shamba Shaper, so I'll have to come up with something else. I mean, if you had one campaign to go across the continent, coming from where we come, I'd naturally direct that towards an edutainment campaign. stepping away from Shamba Shape Up, something that we are doing now is getting back to drama, which for the longest time we ran a program called Makutano Junction, ran for 16 years, was Kenya's most popular television program at the time. And we're bringing it back because we see that actually that is a model that has potentially huge impact across different sectors, especially now where television has become, compared to 16 years ago, you know, very accessible. Video on demand, welcome. Video on demand, again, is going to be overtaking television in the next 10 years, likely as it is in the West. So I would gear it towards an edutainment-style drama series, looking at the different areas that you'd like to scale in, taking them. So the example of Makutano Junction, which we're now transforming into Makutano Mamas, is it's a soap, so a drama soap, 13-part series, looking at different issues that are relevant to women. So we're very much focused on financial inclusion for women. Chamas and SACCOs actually take up a huge part of the storylines, sexual reproductive health, looking at other businesses that women can venture into. In the drama, we have a young girl who works in a bar. She goes to work and doesn't have a nanny on the day and is really desperate about what to do. So actually the idea that she comes up with is, hang on, why don't I look after my kids and also look after the neighbor's kids? And she starts up a business that is running a nursery out of her house. We're also looking at some livestock, looking at the chicken value chain as a business. So, I mean, that's the general setup of the drama. But if we were really looking at the scaling in agriculture that CGIAR is doing, there could be a lot more storylines that are now looking at the innovations that you are all coming up with and plugging them into the drama. So I think a continent-wide drama could travel really well, could easily be dubbed into several different languages. You can work with national broadcasters quite easily. You can get onto platforms. You can get onto YouTube, which is probably the next most accessible platform for the target audience that we're looking at. So yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of ideas that we would have, but definitely I would go into the edutainment space, and then from there you can spin off into all sorts. If you're in a country where radio is maybe more accessible or the mobile penetration isn't so high, you can look at how are people consuming media, how are people consuming information, what are their existing most trusted sources of information to plug into those, rather than trying to come up with something, another app that nobody's going to be able to access because they don't want to spend their data on it. So I think you would look at what's already working, find a format that's quite simple and can travel well, and scale it across the continent.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm going to allow you to speak a little bit about Shamba Shape Up, but not in the Kenyan context.
Okay.
So we had the experience with Ukama Ustawi of working with you to take it from a place that was very established here in Kenya into a new geography, Zambia, and it worked out very well. How would you see that if you look across the continent and you say, well, if we do take the Shamba route, where do you see the potential, and how would you convince us and others who might be listening in the room that it is a wonderful thing to invest in?
Okay, so I mean, like as you've said, we've in the last 6 years we've been really looking at how can we scale Shamba Shape Up into other countries, for the particular reason that it has been running in Kenya for 15 years now, and it has been largely successful. I mean, we've had at its peak 8 million viewers. We're down to 46 million viewers on television, with increasing on YouTube and on-demand viewers. With huge impact. I talked about the CAP studies earlier, but really one of the core pieces of research that was carried out by Reading University and Wageningen University in its second season showed that it has a huge economic impact as well of interviewees. We saw in that research that over 428,000 households had directly benefited from or had an improved food situation in their homes from watching Shamba Shape Up and adapting practices that they saw. Of the dairy farmers that we were looking at and adapted changes that they saw in the program, there was an increase of milk production valued at over $24 million. So clearly it has an economic impact. It has a huge impact on changing knowledge, attitude, and practices for farmers. So that really was a huge motivator for us to say, great, it's been working in Kenya for a very long time. How can we take it to other countries? So we did take it to Uganda first, working with USAID about 4 years ago. We did 2 seasons, then we went on to fund a third independent season. And essentially, why that works is because it's a program that speaks to people, because it's looking at them in their homes, right? So you're watching it at home, but you're also watching families that look like your own family, that speak your language, that have the crops and livestock issues that you have. So as much as, in Kenya, we've seen the model. In Uganda, we're now working with Ugandan farmers. We're visiting Ugandan households. People are farming coffee and banana. Matoke is a really important food. And then going to Zambia, again, now we're looking at how can we make this more context specific. So again, adapting it to several local languages. As much as in Kenya, Kiswahili and English have worked really well. In Luganda, we started off in Central and Eastern, so English and Luganda worked really well. In Zambia, we quickly realized, we need to actually go across 4 different stations. So we were in English, Bemba, Nyanja. And that's the approach that we can have because it's a very flexible program. You look at what are the key agronomic issues that farmers are facing in the country that we're in, what are the key crops and livestock that are farmed, looking at the calendar, again, when is this happening? So we're on time in terms of seasonality. In Kenya, we're broadcasting from March to September. In Zambia, we're going out in November because that's when the long rains begin there. So that's basically the model, and it can easily be adapted at scale across the continent. So I think just to answer your question of sort of where next, we'd be very interested into going into Ethiopia. We see huge potential there. Again, language would be something that we would have to look at very carefully. Amharic obviously being a key language, but also looking at several other languages that could be adapted for the context there.
Great. Thanks, Sophie.
All right.
So somebody handed me a note that our fish tank is starting to slowly leak. So I'm going to ask our fish to give a crisp replies. And let me switch into, yes, let me quickly switch to you, Clemens, with a little bit of a funny question, but you can answer it in any way you want. So if policy impact were a currency, what's the exchange rate between white papers and actual change?
Well, okay. So we all know that currencies are fluctuating, no? So I think right now, given all the crises that are going on in the world, and they are not just one after the other, but now they are compounding each other, I think our exchange rate would be very, very high at the moment. There's a lot of demand, and supply and demand. When demand is high for a currency, then the value goes up. So yeah, I think very high, but at the same time, this is also exciting, no? Because with a high currency, you can do a lot, and it means we have a lot of demand now. Every crisis also has its opportunities, like we have said before. It really forces us to think much sharper, much deeper, to prioritize more. What are the key problems that we are facing at global, regional, and country level? And I just see this as a huge opportunity. And that's what they are. No? If you have a valuable currency, you can buy a lot.
Fantastic. I'll give you also an opportunity, and we'll go around and do that again. In 30 seconds to a minute, do you have a call for action for scaling for impact that you would like to see? In your hat as the policy program or in your IFPRI hat, what is it that you'd like to see?
So we are very committed to work with you from the policy program. I think there are 2 things, broadly speaking. Address demand, that's what we can all do together at all levels. But let's also look into the future, not only what is the current problem, but what is the future problem. And this is where our science, foresight, etc. come in. So I think together we'll be much stronger. The problems differ from place to place. If I'm looking at Kenya and Africa, we are looking at the data, we're listening to policymakers, we're listening to people. In our view, it's jobs, jobs, and jobs, and most importantly for the youth. So maybe that's one of the areas that we can start working together.
Super. Thank you very much. Seamus, if donor coordination had a group chat, what was the last message in it? Let's align next quarter? Still waiting on impact matrix? Or just a face palm emoji?
The the GIF where the dog's in the room, it's all on fire, is the one that actually comes to mind most immediately. But I mean, that's perhaps a little bit bleak. I mean, I think as donors, we're always conscious of a range of factors. It's, if you like, a sort of, when you're in sort of my position, it's easier to get access to the ground and be in the field, and seeing is believing, right? And so you see the positive transformation, the impact that happens on the ground, and you then go back and translate that into be it a diplomatic cable or a report or a presentation for more senior leaders, and then it goes up the chain. And officials like myself, we make recommendations to ministers, to the people who ultimately make the decisions, but they themselves are, of course, accountable to every taxpayer dollar that's spent. And in this environment, unfortunately, there's increasing skepticism of course, spending into the international development cooperation assistance. The classic refrain is, oh, you spend. I mean, if I think about the budget for Asian megadeltas and Ukamara Stawi, 40 to 50 million New Zealand dollars has gone to those programs alone. That obviously funds a lot of nurses in hospitals, right? And so that will always be the classic prioritize the domestic over the international.
Coming to you now.
From my perspective, we need to be better ourselves as donors at selling the story of why development cooperation is so important. We need to be better at marketing ourselves, and that's something, frankly, we're not good at. I have a political science degree, not a public relations degree. The two very different things. And so that's where really we have to do the work ourselves and convince our constituencies, our general public, our political leaders that this is worthwhile. I mean, the simple reality is, and again, another thing I've said this week is, that rising tide lifts all boats, and it certainly does. Finding the key points where we as well as donors, where we benefit. I mean, a good example here is where our own researchers and scientists can integrate into the work that CGIAR is doing. And so we find, okay, fantastic. We've now, we're now seeing a very selfishly, there's a national benefit here as well. And so that helps sell the story, it helps sell the pitch often when we are talking about tens of millions, which could otherwise go into other areas of our budget. Hope that's useful.
Fantastic. So Purnima, first of all, kudos for being the bravest fish in the tank for swimming in here. So well done. I'll give you a minute or two, or a minute and a half. Maybe you could also speak to one thing that you've heard that you'll quote back to your team tomorrow, or if you prefer, something that you've heard here today that you'll steal and pretend in the next workshop was your idea.
All right. Or I can be provocative. Okay, I've heard so much about scaling. I have heard so little about impact at scale. So I really want us to think about that. What is the impact we want to deliver? At what scale? And how is the work that we're doing on scaling going to get us that? The other thing that I feel we need to lean in really, really seriously on is, what are the systems that are delivering scale? I love what you said, media, that's a system for delivering information at scale. But in many of the countries we work in, the systems that we want to rely on to deliver scale, or first to deliver the innovations at scale, and to deliver impact at scale, those systems are being broken. And those systems are breaking down with, not just the loss of aid, but we have work yesterday showing that the trade tariffs are going to reduce GDPs in many of our countries. Retaliatory tariffs are going to make it even worse. That's going to affect systems, extension systems, healthcare systems, social safety net systems. So for me, it's, these two things. If we want to scale in innovation, we need to work really, really hard on firstly, what is the impact we want to achieve from that innovation, and have we documented that really, really well? Can I say to, maybe 3 countries in Africa, you know what, if you do this, you will increase jobs, you will reduce poverty, you will put people on the pathway to food security and better diets. That's what we want to be able to say. So really investing in that knowledge ecosystem, and then those systems. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Okay?
Thank
so
you very
I take a lot of messages, but for me, for impact needs to be a much, much bigger conversation in our rooms.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we're really coming up towards the end, so I'll give you an easier one this time, I promise. So if ag tech had a dating profile, would it say ready to scale, looking for funders, or still figuring things out?
I'd say it's complicated. But I think looking for funders is a big issue, especially in the agricultural sector. We did a recent research. Most ag techs are not getting access to finance. It is becoming less and less attractive to invest in the sector. We've had a lot of large ag techs that got to Series B and then fold. And naturally, investors will then reevaluate their positions around investing in ag techs. So funding would probably be the one. It's cash hungry, cash strapped, and quite a difficult sector to scale in.
Thank you. We have about 90 seconds left before I get pulled with like a hook. So please, over to you in 60 seconds or less.
We
please.
keep on lamenting, and we all are very familiar with the saying, pilots never scale. We also always lament there is no private sector representative in the room. We will release with the Global Forum of Agricultural Innovation Research next month a paper on how to connect research with the private finance sector. And the European Commission has come with a new finance instrument, which is a cascading instrument. When you create a consortium, make sure you have a banker in your consortium. And I give an example. Africa is based in Kenya. Africa has a mandate continental-wide, and there was a proposal
20 seconds.
About aquaponics. They involved Africa, and now they scale up. On the 4 million they received from the European Commission, 1 million is to scale up through banks on aquaponics. So there are instruments in place, but we should stop lamenting on things are not progressing. And I totally agree with you. We need to be far more creative on understanding the private finance sector. It's about capital ventures, about incubators, accelerators, and there is another company here in Kenya called DFS, which is Deepening Finance Sector Africa. We will have a meeting on Monday precisely to understand better the finance environment in Africa, willing to have researchers pitch for their proposals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for that. So I'll paraphrase some of the takeaway. There used to be some restaurants when I was young where you can bring your own beer, let's say, BYOB. So you're advocating that we should keep the BYOB, bring your own banker, make sure that the financing sector is there. Thank you very much for that intervention. Good. So I think we've come to the end of our allocated time, and we are on the dot. Do I hand it back to you, Nora? How does it work? So thanks everyone for participating in the fishbowl. It's been fantastic swimming with you. And back over to you, Nora.
Thanks, and of course also everyone here gets a t-shirt. I have now changed into the uniform. And I'm handing over to our final and closing speaker, the new chief scientist, Sandra Miller. Go ahead.
Thank you. Another round of applause for our fishbowl. Great job. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for playing along.
Very good. Thank you. Let them go. Fantastic. Picture time. Let's go. Picture time. Let's not forget. Let them do it. No problem. Yeah, put on your t-shirt, please. good, very good. Well done, well done. Thank you so much. Okay, we are about to close this section. It was a fantastic section. I was here for half of the time, but I heard a lot of good things. But I want to reflect a little bit of how the scaling program fits into the portfolio and what are the challenges in front of it. Many. And, you know, and I think there are many challenges because not all farmers are made the same. Not all communities are made the same. Not all value chains are the same. Not all countries and regions and continents are the same. And technologies are different. And all these things we need to actually wait into when we think about scaling. And on top of that, how we actually bring innovations, making sure that equities are respected, that we work towards that goal of equity, that we look at gender, youth inclusion, social inclusion, all those things. So the challenge of that is immense. But CGIAR cannot do this alone, and I think many ideas today, both from the plenary section and the fishbowl came, that I think helps us to start thinking about that. I mean, we've been thinking about that for sure, but I think they sort of materialize some of the things we are talking about. And no wonder why we had these speakers to be invited as well. One of them, I think, is the TAT model. Great example of, you know, one of the scaling program challenges is to ask, can we replicate that model in other continents with other development banks? I think it's a very good question that the scaling is already working towards. We talk about some of the private sector. There's so many examples already that exist. I mean, you know, the MAIS program, for instance, is working very closely with, you know, private sector memberships, and can that example be replicated other places? So we talked today about startups, accelerators, you know. One of the fishbowl brave seats here, you know, talk about, are we looking venture capital, different other ways of doing this? And I think we need to look at the examples that are working and how we actually scale those examples. So you see, the scaling is about accelerating innovations to impact. That's the goal of scaling. It's not necessarily doing the scaling itself. It's to really promote those things that are working across different parts of, you know, if you think about the globe, the different continents, and ask the question, can I actually, let's try if this works in this particular area, in this particular country. And if not, how do we make it? You know, how do we make it really tailored to the needs of the community, to the farmers, to, you know, to how we tailor it? So I think that's the challenge in front of us. It's an enormous challenge. And we need, of course, also to learn which partners play in each country. Who are available? I mean, if you're scaling seeds, very different if you're scaling fish or scaling livestock solutions. So who are the partners that are there already? What are the examples that have worked? And who we need to bring to the table that are not still partners into this big challenge things. So I think this, for me, is the challenge. But I think, and it is a huge challenge. A lot of things we need to work on this program. I'm glad that it's part of the portfolio. I'm glad that it's here to help us to think about this, because it puts focus on saying we really need to bring this to scale. And I think also it emphasizes what would be my last message to you, what we heard from Dr. Burlock. He said, bring to the farmer. Okay, so I think that's what we want to do with the scale. Can we bring to the farmer? Can we bring to the communities? Can we, all these things that we're doing, can we collectively help to make this happen so that the investment we do in research are really turning to solutions for these global problems? Thank you.
All right. So she's also getting a T-shirt. Okay, so what we wanted to do now is, I don't know if you guys have been to some of the other programs. They have like really exciting launches and like amazing things going on. And we were like, we didn't realize that was the vibe. So we tried to do something. So we asked AI to create a song for us. So we will be listening to that. We would like everyone to grab a shirt, right, and take a group photo and maybe stay around, talk to us, and get involved. So can we play our amazing DJ Gatto led AI song? Please grab a t-shirt and then come to the front for a group photo. Thank you.
I think that science spoke for itself, but the impact faded back on the shelf. So much research done, and yet the change we needed, not there yet. We had the plans, we had the minds, but not the reach to move the lines. Now it's time to break that frame and scale it in a brand new name. We won't wait another year. Now the vision's loud and clear. For the ones who can't afford the fight, for the people out of sight. Scaling. Scaling. They said it couldn't be done at scale. Too complex, too slow, too frail.
Ja, en Nebel die hebben een soort incubator met 25 projecten die social schaal. Dus het is heel anders dan de private sector. En ik heb een soort van